Hi guys, today I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on how to grow your Giganotosaurus on the Isle solo. Solo can typically be pretty daunting for most new players or even average players, especially when you're trying to grow a Apex. Because Giga takes a little over 6 hours to fully grow, and they can typically be picked off by bigger dinos throughout the Juvie stage and even the sub stage. So I'll just share with you some tips and tricks that I use to grow my Giga relatively safely. First things first, you want to pick a decent color scheme that's going to help blend you into your surroundings. So usually some greens, dark green, black, brown, those kind of colors will definitely help you just to keep you from being seen and picked off pretty easily at the start. So I'll think I'll go with this color scheme to get me started here. Now, once you spawn in, two things you want to figure out right at the start. First off, where you're at currently. For that, I use the Vulnona site, which most people use. If you don't know it, I'll make sure to include that in the description just so you have it. And you can just go to your character menu and copy your location and pop that right into the map to figure out where exactly you're at. So once you have your map open and figure out where you're at, you want to figure out a destination point. So currently my character is right around here, right on the beach. Now there's a few destination points that are fairly well, and obviously this can change throughout each server, but I'll show you a couple ones that work pretty well for me. So northernmost is a pretty good spot. Not too many people go up there, so you're usually pretty safe and secluded if you want to grow there. Dump is another one right over here. Not too many people go that far upriver, so I've grown there a couple times pretty safely. My all-time favorite is all the way at the bottom here over an estuary tower. It's quite the hike though, so it's typically only good if you get a close spawn. But it's definitely a pretty good spot. And then down south here as well, Loon's Deep. I find that pretty safe and secluded. The spots that you want to make sure to avoid, especially as an early Giga, is Twins. It's a hot spot. Titan Lake. Hidden over here. Murky. Even Little Duo is pretty dangerous as a fresh Giga. And then obviously Great Falls and Gulf Pond. So that's typically where you'll encounter most Rexes, adult Gigas, even Sarahs, Aloes, and the likes. They're all going to look at you as a good snack when you're a juvie. So the hardest part, obviously, is figuring out your destination and getting there. So I'll kind of briefly show you what I like to do on the journey over there. So I'm starting over at the beach near Cargo Pond. Closest to me would be Dump or Northernmost. So what I'll most likely do is try to get to Dump, and then from there judge to find out if I need to go to Northernmost or not. Okay. So if you spawn on the beach, you typically always want to use a burst of energy, get yourself right in the tree line. That way you can stay safely out of sight. Now, Giga Juvies, they lose their hunger pretty early. Now, definitely keep your ears peeled. You want to kind of get used to Dinosaur Sounds. That way, you know what's hidden in the trees or close by. What I'm hearing there is a full adult Giga, so could prove dangerous, could be safe. Really depends on the player. Now on your journey, your water retention's fairly decent as a Giga Juvie, so you can usually get it to last you up until you get to your spot, depending on how long the journey is. But obviously if you do have to get a drink of water, try and only drink when you're around 10-15% water retention left, because you don't want to be drinking, you know, every 20% or what have you. It just makes for unnecessary trips. And definitely try and familiarize yourself with AI sounds and calls, because they're going to be your prime source of food, unless you get some easy player kills. But tacos and oros and bellows are usually the main ones that I like to target as a Giga Juvie, just because you are really slow and your bite force is fairly terrible, so Avas aren't as easy. Basically what I'm doing now is just trying to avoid these other dinos that I'm hearing in the background. They all seem to be coming from the east side, so I assume they must be in the mountains or so. But it sounds like Utahs and even Gigas, both of which would be happy to eat me, so. And now I'm going north, and just heard another Giga sound from north, so I might want to try and cut in east just to avoid. And every now and then, if you do want to rest to get some stamina back, find a big tree like this. Especially at night, you're almost unrecognizable. The only way they can really track you down is with your footprints. But then once you have full stamina again, you're on the adventure. So it looks like we're just under halfway to our destination. So for water, we should be okay until we get to the ravine or just past it, close to dump. Now on the way I'll definitely have to find some food, but I haven't heard any player calls in a while, so we should be okay there for now. Definitely over halfway there. And I'm certainly at the point where I need both water and food. Okay, so that sound was from a taco, and I actually see him up on that mountain. So he's a pretty easy meal, and it's definitely worth going after him. It's not that far either, so. Now typically what I recommend when you're hunting in the trees and whatnot is you definitely want to be cautious, but if they're out in the open like this, you certainly don't have to be as cautious, especially when you're starving. But all it takes is one predator to see me and they can get me down and eat me. But in this case, I think I'm the predator. Perfect. So that put us at 100. Now we can go back on the journey to the dump. We are getting low on water, so we definitely want to get there as quick as possible. And I do see the waterfalls over that ridge, so while you're on the journey, you know, especially when daylight comes, always be out on the lookout for other dinos too. And one rule of thumb I always use when you're approaching a water source, whether it be a popular one or a fairly secluded one, is just gauge the area, crouch in the trees before you come out to the water. Just listen, look around, see if there's anything that you need to be afraid of before going for water. Because a lot of the time what predators can do is just basically the same thing, chill in the tree line, and if they see a dinosaur drinking, then they'll go in for the attack. So just taking that extra bit of time can certainly save you. And especially when you're running from tree lines like I'm doing just now, try to be as quick as possible. Because where I'm at right now is probably the most visible that you can be. But once you get to the next tree line, you can blend in a lot easier as well. So I always like to be quick when I'm crossing those plains or fields. Okay, so I see the water over there. I'm definitely a lot lower water than ideally you'd like to be, so I'll try to cut it, get some water, and then go up. Ideally, around 15% is when you want to go in, fill yourself up on water. And with better spawns, you can try to hit more water sources. But unfortunately on my spawn, the closest water source to me was twins. And that's not one that you really want to be using as a juvie. Okay. And normally when you eat or drink, I always like to crouch and get my ambush speed up, and then drink, because you actually retain it. And if something does come, I'll be a little bit more speedy. Just make sure to open up your character menu, or else your ambush speed will go away. So it doesn't look like we needed it, and we're full on water. And we're quite close to our destination as well. Should just be downriver. Now, with rivers, depending on its popularity, I try not to be right on the water's edge. If you can, cut into the tree line a little bit. Because right next to the water's edge is where you could encounter other dinos. Other carnivores, I should say. But being cut into the tree line, if there is any other dinosaurs drinking at the water, you can typically avoid them. And that right there would be Ava. As a juvie, I typically don't recommend to go for them, because they're a loud dinosaur. So if there's any other carnivores in the area, they typically go for them too. So I try to avoid them, but now that I've reached my secluded destination, I should be fairly safe. But yeah, I'm at the secluded destination. It's Dumps Bog. So just up there at the yellow mark. And it's a pretty good one. Most people don't really go here, especially not active apexes or mid-tiers even. So you can find it relatively safe to grow your Giga. Now, in a case where you get to it, and there's clearly other dinosaurs here that you don't want to stay around, you have a few options. You can either choose a different location, where at this point I could easily go to northernmost, try that one out, or you can simply log and maybe come back at a later time when no one's in the area. But you definitely always have options. Just try to remain unseen and invisible. That way they don't know you're there. Because if any other carnivores do see you, they'll definitely try and pick you off. But other than that, when you do get to the area, try to stay resting in a open area away from cliffs and such. That way your AI spawns in an easy to reach place. Typically you can get enough AI to spawn for you to grow you up to at least adult. Once you're adult, you really don't get enough AI to keep you full, so it's at that point you definitely want to leave your spot and go hunt for players and other dinosaurs. But once you're an adult, I mean, you're basically at the point where you definitely don't have to be afraid of most things anymore. Alright, well, I appreciate you guys watching, and if you do have any questions or any other tips that I can give you, feel free to reach out. But thanks guys, and see you in the next one.